I ended up on two paths. Path one was, I said, why do they freeze in lights? And then that took to, why do frogs freeze at night or in hibernation? So I'll get into that in a minute. But the other one was how they call it light pollution is affecting amphibians. So there was all these experiments done, and I won't read them all to you, but there was all these experiments that they're doing right now out of like reputable universities that they think amphibians are being negatively impacted by light pollution. And light pollution is just simply having lights on, and the fact that human beings are expanding, especially around water, and adding a bunch of lights and street lights and things like that, that it's actually changing the habits of the frogs. What they were finding is they were like subjecting frogs to like 12 hours of light, 12 hours without light, frogs with light for 20 hours instead of 4. They did it with all different types of amphibians. And what they were finding was that they weren't releasing, what's the thing that I take before bed sometimes? It gives me bad dreams, though, so I don't take it no more. It helps people sleep. Melatonin. Thank you. So the melatonin in the like when they're exposed to so much with light, a lot of it, even artificial, they won't produce as much melatonin. They won't sleep as much. It also impacts how they reproduce and how fast they grow from the tadpole stage all the way up through into frogs, and that it stunts the growth of a lot of them. The ones that had dark, all the consistent dark like they need, the 12 hours of it, they were growing better, they were healthier, they were getting more sleep, they were a much higher percentage of them were growing stronger. So there was like a lot of benefits to it, and that they think that we're going to continue to negatively impact them, and that even the frogs that are on the outskirts are still getting exposed to light. They said in some ways even like a big moon can affect them, but
don't go to Alaska.
The light pollution that we're really hitting them with is jacking them up. I didn't see one frog in Alaska, come to think of it. That could be because of my next point, but
yeah, it's true.
It was talking about the cold. So then I was like, well, what does happen to a frog during the winter? And I guess I kind of knew that they hibernate, but I didn't understand. Hibernation's always something that I have trouble understanding, like the complexities of it. What's the first thing you think of? 1, 2, 3, go, bears.
Bears.
Yeah.
Wild America. Wild America.
Yeah, you think of bears when you think of hibernation. Mm-hmm. And I know they eat their butt plugs, and then they, they plug themselves up so they're not fecal matter all over themselves. They like to wake up to a clean house. Right. Who doesn't? But I was getting into frogs. Now listen to what frogs do. So they dig down past the frost line. When they get down in there, their heart and lungs actually come to a complete stop and they quit breathing. Oh. But what happens is their body produces a ton of glucose and their blood sugar level skyrockets. And what that does is it acts as like antifreeze inside the body. So these, awesome. Yeah, so that they can't freeze, because if the ice crystals formed, it would jack them up and it would kill them. But because of the antifreeze, if you will, with the sugar in the body, they don't get the ice crystals. And then from what they can tell magically in the spring, they'll wake back up and the lungs will fire back up and the heart will fire back up as the heat comes. But what can happen is we get this in Michigan a lot, we'll get like those 3 days where you're like, it's spring, and you start rolling down your windows, and then winter comes back. That kills off a lot of frogs because they get coaxed out and then they get lit up again. No. Yeah, but that's how frogs hibernate. I had no idea.
I thought it was just bears.
Yeah.
Well, now we know.
All kinds of stuff. Yeah. Well, it is interesting. You don't got to do that just because it wasn't your story.